Hey everybody, so welcome back to the next episode here. So in the first episode we kind of went over the basics of the series. The second one we kind of explained aspects, which are a fairly big part of the game. This time we're going to look at the core mechanic, what makes Fate work basically. So your basic character is going to have skills, aspects, and that's it. And then, they have what they call a concept, which is kind of like, smuggler with a heart of gold, just kind of like a basic description of your person, which in some instances could also be an aspect, but I don't think they're going to really see as much play as the rest of it. So basically, with Fate, your character has skills, and they start on like a pyramid. So you're going to have your best skill at great, and then the next is good, fair, and average. Um, and then they're just assigned a basic stat. So every character has one good skill or one great skill that they're really good at, and then two greats, three fair and four average, and then they're rated just by a static number. So for example, a great skill is at four, then three, then two, then one, and so then you pick them. So like Han might be a great pilot, so he has a piloting of four. So the difficulty scale in Fate really goes from, I think it says -2 to 8, with 8 just being like heroically impossible. So you can see then if it's an average or, let's see what the book says here. It was up here at the front. Okay, so let me see if I can get this up here so you can see it. So there is the difficulties chart, right? Okay, so if you have a skill of 4, you are up here. You are almost halfway through the difficulty chart, right? Which in theory would mean you could do anything of that difficulty or less without breaking a sweat. No real dice roll chances you have to take on it or whatever, at least on the surface, right? So that means you should have a pretty decent chance of doing whatever you're going to do. Well, the way Fate approaches this mechanically then is, say you're in an asteroid belt and you need to dodge asteroids and dodge TIE fighters while you're running for it because your hyperdrive's broken, which seems to happen, the Millennium Falcon every day. So what you would do is you would have to roll a piloting skill because there's an obvious sense of danger. And Fate is pretty particular mechanically about when to roll. In fact, they consider most characters fairly competent, seasoned adventurers, so you don't actually want to roll the dice very often. You only want to do it when there's an actual sense of risk. So, if Han is in the cantina and he's playing a bunch of people that are obviously no good at Sabak, and he's like an expert, then don't even roll. Just it's just him mooching him for some credits. But if he's got a worthy opponent, then you might want to make a gambling roll. So the same thing with piloting. If the Millennium Falcon is just flying along in space and nothing's going on, then you don't really need a piloting roll. If it's a standard approach and landing, you don't really need to roll. But if you're dodging TIE fighters, laser blasts, and asteroids at the same time, then obviously that's something big and heroic and you want to make a dice roll for it. So the way that works is you take your skill. So we'll say Han is a great pilot, so we're going to give him a +4 in his skill. And then what you're going to do is you're going to roll 4 dice with it. Now, Fate uses its own set of dice. They are essentially six-siders. You can use a regular six-sider for this, but basically a Fate die has a plus on one side, a minus on the other side, and blank sides. So what you're going to do then is roll the 4 dice and add it to your skill. Now, a blank means 0, a minus means take one away, and a plus adds a +1 to your roll. So basically with the dice, in theory, you could roll a -4. You could also roll a +4, but more than likely you're going to end up with a +2 or a 1 or somewhere in between. So that's kind of where it falls. So if I say it's really hard dodging asteroids, TIE fighters, and everything together, so it's going to be a skill of 6 or a difficulty of 6, which would put it at a fantastic, difficulty, which seems fair for dodging all that at the same time, then Han would have to roll his dice, and he wants to get at least a +2 on the roll. So, I'll take these dice here and we'll shake them up and roll it here. So I've got, actually I rolled really well, so I got 3 pluses and a minus. So what that means is the minus takes away a plus, and I have a +2. So I have my skill of 4 plus 2, which gives me a 6, which means Han made the difficulty and he dodged the asteroids. And that's the basic mechanic there. It's the 4 dice and your skill. And then it's just based on the difficulty of whatever the skill is, or whatever you're trying to accomplish. Now, where it gets a little interesting is, remember, there are no attributes, there are no like hard physical stats, there are aspects. So what you would do that in that case is, if an aspect would benefit you for whatever you're trying to do, you can do what they call invoke the aspect. So what that pretty much means is that, say Han is trying to dodge the asteroids, okay? And he's got to dodge the TIE fighters, which are fast fighters, and say he needs to outrun them. Then what he can do is invoke the aspect of the Millennium Falcon, fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. It seems like it would be appropriate if you're trying to outrun something. So typically characters have what they call fate points, and fate points are used to invoke aspects. So if Han was running from these TIE fighters and he, say, needed a 5 to escape them and rolled badly and got a 0, or say a -1, so he only has a 3 in piloting right now because he rolled a -1. If he invokes that aspect, he would pay a fate point to the game master, and then what would happen is that aspect would kick in and give him an automatic +2 to his roll. So in that case, it would be his skill plus whatever the dice rolled +2. So if Han had a skill of 4, rolled a -1 that put him at 3, and then gets a +2 from the aspect, that would give him a 5, which was the difficulty to outrun the TIE fighters. And that's basically how it's going to interrelate here. So, anything that has an aspect, your character, your equipment, the room, the area you're in, anything like that can be invoked if it makes sense for the story. So, it opens things up in a weird way that not any other game I've really played ever does. Like, let's see. So you could say, and I haven't played, so I'm just this is my working knowledge of the game thus far. You could say stormtroopers have the aspect bad shot, for example. And so if you're fighting stormtroopers and one of them rolls and say gets a +4 on the dice and would actually be able to shoot you, you could say, but their aspect is they're really bad shots, and I'm going to spend a fate point to invoke that aspect. And when you do, then maybe they could take a -2 to their roll, or you could get a +2 to defend yourself, or something like that to try and get out of it. Stuff like that. And these aspects are for everyone. So the game master can invoke aspects, the players can invoke aspects, and they can do it back and forth. So like the game master can use aspects for against the characters, or the characters can use aspects of the environment against the NPCs, and so it doesn't necessarily just relate to skills, but I just wanted to kind of show how skills worked with an aspect. So, like if you had the aspect crack shot and you wanted to shoot somebody and it was a really difficult shot, then you could invoke that aspect and get a +2 on your bonus. And since the difficulty chart only goes really up to 8, you can see where a +2 bonus makes a massive difference. So that's kind of the basics of aspects, skills, and the core mechanic, and that's really the core mechanic there, is just 4 dice plus your skill, and then maybe an aspect if it's fits into the story. So we're going to call it there, and then we'll be back with the next episode here. So thank you for watching, and have a good one, and happy gaming.